Welcome to Wesleyan End Time Bible Prophecy Ministry, the broadcast teaching of the Holy Mountain Church of God, brilliant ideas on the soon second coming of Jesus Christ. Today we're going to look at a lesson from Daniel chapter 12 that is added proof of the return of Christ in the year 2003 from Daniel chapter 12 verses 11 and 12. Our previous podcast, we discovered that the times of the Gentiles was fulfilled within those two verses of Daniel 12, 11, and 12. Today we're going to look at the times and a half expression as being contained within the 1,290 days of Daniel 12, verse 11. For our background, we're going to read this scripture, the entirety of the 13 verses of Daniel chapter 12, so that we can point out the meaning of this graph that we have. Daniel 12, verse 1, At that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. That's referring to 70 AD and the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD. Daniel 12:1 and following verses are relating to the first coming of Christ. And verse 2, Many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake. Now that happened in Matthew chapter 26, where when Jesus died on the cross, there was a great earthquake, and many bodies of the saints arose, and after Christ's resurrection came out from and appeared unto many as Jesus appeared. So did those Old Testament worthies. That was the resurrection of the Old Testament saints in tandem with the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Verse 3, Daniel 12. And they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. Verse 4. But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. Verse 5. Then I, Daniel, looked, and behold, there stood two other, the one on this side of the bank of the river, and the other on that side of the bank of the river. And one said to the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, How long shall it be to the end of these wonders? That is, how long will this prophecy last, or will the times and a half be that is to transpire between the destruction of Jerusalem and the end of the world, or regarding these days that follow the destruction of Jerusalem. Verse 7. And I heard the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swear by him that liveth for ever and ever, that it shall be for a time, times and an half, and when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be fulfilled. And so that is to bring us to the end of these days, as we'll see. And as we see in the book of Revelation in chapter 10, when the Lamb has opened the sealed book, we have the picture of that going back to Daniel chapter 7, verse 12. And that's paralleled in Revelation chapter 10. Verse 8, Daniel 12. And I heard, but I understood not. Then said I, O my Lord, what shall be to the end of these things? And he said, Go thy way, for the words are closed up. That is the times and a half. It's a sealed apocalyptic expression until the times of the end. And that's today. We're unsealing what was sealed up back in the days of Daniel. But now the mystery is being unsealed. Amazing thing. Verse 10, Daniel 12:10. Many shall be purified and made white and tried. But the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. And so you're wise now if you can listen and understand what we're revealing to you. Brilliant ideas of the wise to understand the imminent return of Jesus Christ, according to the unsealing of the age-long sealed apocalyptic formula of the time, times, and a half. We have right here the unsealing of that expression. So let's go through this and show you this great mystery that's been sealed for thousands of years. All right, the time, times, and a half is the 1,290 days. They're equal expressions. The secret to the unsealing is found in the 30 days, as we know, is a month, and in the equation of a month with a generation of 40 years. So a month then in apocalyptic symbolism, as we will meet it again in the book of Revelation, is a period of 40 years, a generation. A month is a symbol for a generation. So the 1,290 days, we have the 30 days being a generation of 40 years. We know there was 40 years between Pentecost, the coming of the kingdom, and the destruction of Jerusalem. That would account for the 30 days before 70 A.D. And then we know the 1,260 days is often interpreted as the last half or part of Daniel's 70th week. And we see that expression in the book of Revelation. Now, we're going to go through this very interesting unsealing here as it relates to the time, times, and a half expressions. Now, the time is a period of 40 years. As we've said, the 30 days is 40 years, a month equaling a generation of 40 years. The times is two times, a time, times, two times. Well, in the book of Revelation, we find there are two mentions of generations or months. Remember, we're equating months with generations. There's 42 months that are mentioned in Revelation chapter 11, verse 2. The holy city shall be trodden down of the Gentiles for 42 months. And then the 42-month expression is also found in chapter 13, verse 5. The beast rising up out of the sea was given power to continue for 42 months. And then we have a second section, a time. We have one time, the 42 months. The second times is the 5 months in the book of Revelation. In Revelation chapter 9, under the symbolism of the fifth trumpet, we have the demonic torments unleashed on earth, the beast rising up out of the bottomless pit in chapter 9, verses 1 through 10, and the 5 months being the period of demonic torments. They have power to torment men for 5 months. And so that is the two times, times 2, these periods. And then the times and a half has a half of a time going back to a generation. Half of a generation is 20 years. Now, what we notice is that in the book of Revelation in chapter 12, the times and a half is synonymous with the 1,260 days. Now, this is in reference to the Jews in the Gentile diaspora, the woman fleeing into the wilderness for times and a half, is the Jews going into the diaspora after 70 A.D. And in Revelation 12, verse 6, it says that they will be in the diaspora, Jerusalem trodden down of the Gentiles for 1,260 days. And then in chapter 12, verses 14, it mentions for times and a half. So there's an overlay of the times and a half and the 1,260 days in Revelation chapter 12, which indicates that they are synonymous times. The times and a half, you see, is the 1,260 days, the last part of Daniel's 70th week in the book of Revelation. Now, it's interesting to notice here that the two witnesses in chapter 11 prophesy 1,260 days, the same period, you see. This is the church age. The second half of the 70th week following 70 AD. The first portion of the 70th week was before 70 AD. The second portion is after the 30 days, the generation from 30 to 70 AD. The 1,260 days is the last half or part of the 7th week in the book of Revelation, as the times of the church age in chapter 11, the two witnesses prophesying 1,260 days, and as the times of the woman in the wilderness, the Gentile diaspora, 1,260 days, which is equated with the times and a half. Now, we can figure the total generations here as we combine these revelations that we find here to equal the 1,290 days. So we have first, in the first 30 days, we have a month or generation is one time, and that's here. And then we have a 42 months or 42 generations period in the times. And then we have a 5-month or 5 generation period in the times. And then we come back to the half of a time, which is here, the half, there's a period there, half a time. So we have one generation, another generation, that's 2 generations, plus 42 is 44 generations, plus 5 generations is 49 generations, plus a half of a generation equals the 49 and a half generations. Now we know these generations are 40 years, so if we multiply by 40, we get 1,980 prophetic years. That is the length of this 1,290 days, which is from 70 AD. Go back to Daniel chapter verse 12, verse 11. From the time that the daily sacrifice is taken away in 70 AD shall be 1,260 days, or these 49 generations, or 1,980 prophetic years. Now, the reason these are prophetic years is because of the 1,260 days, which is 3.5 years, allowing then for 360 days per year. That's the lunar time frame. That's the prophetic years. And so that if we take the 1,980 prophetic years times the 360 days in a year, we get real days of 712,800 days. Now, to convert those into solar years, which is to put it in our current time, we divide those days then by 365.2422, and that accounts for the leap year, and that gives us a solar years of 1,552 solar years. The 1,980 prophetic years is in solar years, our time now, 1,952 years. That's the 1,290 days from 70 AD, brings us amazingly to 20,022. And that's what we saw when we added these days together and added that then to the times of the Gentiles beginning in 603, we get the same date. Now, we know that this is the next year because of the extra days of verse 12. Now that's the 1,290 days, but verse 12, Daniel 11, verse 12, blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,335 days, which is 45 days later. It pushes it into the next year, you see, into 2023, and that agrees perfectly with the times of the Gentiles. So the times and a half is the fulfillment of the times of the Gentiles, both beginning from Nebuchadnezzar's vision of the great image in 603 BC and taken from the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD. Amazing prophetic fulfillment and unsealing. To learn more about the Wesleyan Bible prophecy brilliant ideas, please view our many other videos at Gary Cutler YouTube channel. Jesus really is coming soon. For more information, please go to rapturerevival.org and spread the word.